Good morning, and thank you very much for attending. I'm here with my colleague Kevon Stewart, who you'll hear from in a bit. Kevon is the Steelworker Director for Ontario and Atlantic Canada, and myself, I'm the National Steelworker Director. So, rumor has it, there's an election. There's an election coming, and we assume it's going to be announced either Sunday or Monday. And that's why we're here today. Because as steelworkers, we want to go on the record. We want to go on the record to say that we are proud to endorse Jagmeet Singh and the New Democratic Party. You know, we are in tough times. We have the attack on the Trump by the tariffs. And we're feeling that as workers. Our members are feeling that. If it's not being laid off, the insecurity, the uncertainty, the whole on, off is going. And so it's a real time for we need somebody, whether it be, we just heard Little Moose is shutting down, some 40 members. We have our Avaco layoffs in Hawkesbury area. And as well as we have some Algoma Steel layoffs from the uncertainty. So it's times like this, times like we're in and times like we're heading to, because I believe this is half a shoe that dropped. As these trade wars accelerate, as Trump attacks Canada's economy, there's more shoes to drop. So we need a fighter at this time. We need a strong leader who has our backs and who is always in our corner. And I can tell you, that is Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. Let's be very clear. Jagmeet Singh didn't hesitate. He never hesitated after the tariffs were announced that the NDP government would fight for Canadian steelworkers with massive job creation in public infrastructure using Canadian content, including Canadian steel and aluminum. Since the last election, we got some real stuff to be proud of. Since the last election, the NDP has leveraged their powers to, we could talk about pharmacare and dental care. Think of that. That's the largest expansion in public health care in the system in generations. We negotiated the drug and dental coverage, and we negotiate drug and dental coverages in our collective agreements, but not all workers have that coverage. And now they can start to access the dental care and the diabetic medication if they need to do so. And there's many, and my colleague Kevon and Jagmeet are going to mention other ones, but I wanted to highlight one other one before I hand the mic over, is the new childcare arrangements make the $10 daycare a reality for so many provinces and territories. This is so important for parents so they can stay in the workforce and know their kids are cared for. Kevon, and as I said, Kevon and Jagmeet Singh will mention many other achievements, but these are tough times. And the NDP, as Monique said, gives us hope. Hope we'll continue to protect and fight for working people alongside the NDP. And in this election, we know who's in our corner. The same party that's with us on picket lines and in union halls and always supporting workers and unionized members, and that is the NDP. So let me turn it over to our Ontario and Atlantic District Director, Kevon Stewart.
Thank you, Marty. My name is Kevon Stewart, and I'm proud to stand here as a representative of the United Steelworkers Union, District Director representing workers in the province of Ontario and all 4 Atlantic provinces. Our union has always fought for good jobs, fair wages, and dignity for workers. And we know that in this fight, we need allies. who actually show up, who stand with us, not just when it's easy, but when it's also tough. Right now, workers are being squeezed. These tariffs, these bad trade deals have put our jobs at risk. Companies are chasing bigger profits. Plants are closing. Pensions are being threatened. And when this happens, we must ask ourselves, who shows up when it counts? Our members already know the answer. There's only one party that's consistently stands with the United Steelworkers and workers. The only party that shows up on picket lines when we're all locked out or when we're on strike, and that's the NDP. When USW members at Welded Tube of Canada and members at National Steel Car went out on strike fighting for fairness, it was only Jagmeet that showed up. Not for a photo op, not for a presser, but to stand with us, listen to us, and work with us to fight for fairness. And it's the NDP through Jagmeet's leadership. He just doesn't just talk the talk. Jagmeet and the NDP also delivers. Marty talked about some of the deliveries and the success, but I'm going to heighten and increase some of those. They, NDP, pushed to ban scabs. Finally, ending the practice of replacement workers being used during strikes and lockouts in federally regulated sectors. We should be proud of that. They also, when I say they, Jagmeet, through his leadership, also passed the Sustainable Job Act, making sure workers, not just CEOs, have a voice in the transition to a greener economy. That's what we do. And when it comes to our vulnerable sector, retirees, pensioners, Jagmeet has always put retirees and pensions ahead of big banks. When companies go bankrupt, because no worker, and let me repeat that, no worker should lose their pensions while corporate executives walk away with a golden handshake. The United Steelworkers, our union, we know what's at stake at this election. And that is why the USW members across Ontario and across all 4 Atlantic provinces will be out volunteering, knocking doors, making calls, and standing up for the party that stands up for us. Let me be abundantly clear here. The NDP was built by workers and for workers. And if we want to keep fighting for good jobs, strong unions, and fair wages, we need to elect more NDP MPs to Ottawa. So let me ask you again, who shows up when it counts? The answer is clear. Only Jagmeet Singh. So my ask, our ask, let's re-elect Jagmeet Singh and send more NDP MPs to Parliament to fight, to continue the fight for fight workers. At the end of the day, Jagmeet is a true leader, and I thank you. Now it's my utmost honor to stand here and introduce your next speaker. And it's not just really the next speaker, it's your next Prime Minister of Canada. And the reason why he's next Prime Minister of Canada is because he gets it. He's a leader that gets and understands the need for workers, but he also understands the need for Canadians at this particular time. We've talked about some of his highlights of what he's been able to accomplish for workers, some of the highlights that he's been able to accomplish for Canadians. So it only goes and say that it makes sense that Jagmeet continues his work and continues to fight. So without further ado, please help us welcome the next Prime Minister of Canada, Jagmeet Singh.
Thank you. I'm so honored. I'm so honored to be back in Hamilton. So honored to be surrounded by some incredible candidates. And a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart to United Steelworkers. They're amazing. Big round of applause to the leadership. Marty, Kevon. And I'm so humbled and honored to accept the endorsement. We're going through some tough times right now, as Marty pointed out, as Kevon pointed out, and as Monique pointed out. We're going through some tough times. And if you go to any steelworker right now, steelworkers will tell you, whether you're a steelworker, you're working in an aluminum producing factory, you're working in a factory that manufactures anything. Those workers are worried that they might be the next to lose their jobs. Marty already pointed out, workers are already losing their jobs right now. And in this time, when workers are losing their job, they need to know that employment insurance is going to be there for them. There's going to be some programs in place for them. They can keep a roof over their head, keep food on the table, and keep paying their bills. But right now, that is not the case. And I want to point out that Mark Carney has been prime minister for a week now. He's found the time to go to Europe. He's found the time to bring in a tax cut for millionaires, but he has done nothing for workers who are losing their jobs in this country. Nothing. He's done nothing to help out people and say, you know what, if you are going to lose your job, we're going to have your back. He's done nothing in a week, facing the most serious economic crisis we've been up against in a generation. And Pierre Poilievre, I want to point out Pierre Poilievre as well. He showed up to a factory where 30 workers lost their jobs and proposed a tax cut for the business. He said nothing to the workers who actually lost their job. He said nothing to the people who are now wondering, how am I going to keep a roof over my head? Nothing for them. But it shows you who Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are in it for. They're in it for the CEOs. They're in it for the big bosses. They're not in it for the worker. That's the difference between them and us. New Democrats are proud to say we were founded by working people. We're a party founded by unions. And sure, it should come as no surprise that we want to see a worker-led economy where workers are first. So the first step of a New Democrat government would be to immediately make sure EI can help workers keep a roof over their head, keep food on the table, and pay their bills. We will make that happen. Workers are fighting back. Workers got their elbows up. They're ready to fight back against Donald Trump. They need a government that's got their back. A government that's going to fight for working people, not for the billionaires. On top of that, we need to create an economy where we are more resilient, where we are stronger. So we need to build Canadian jobs, building Canada up using Canadian content and Canadian workers. Let's use only Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian content in any infrastructure project across this country. Let's build jobs that create good paying jobs where we're using Canadian steel, Canadian content to build up our country. Let's build a more resilient Canada. And also what's become really clear is we need to make sure that we stop right now. The vulnerability that we have is that there's a lot of threat of foreign takeovers of Canadian industries. Let's prevent that from happening, strengthening Canadian industry and not letting foreign takeovers happen. And finally, we've obviously got to diversify our trade relations. So we're going to work on making sure we trade to more countries so we're not so dependent on the US. But let us be really clear. In this election, Canadians have a choice. You got Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre who are showing you who they are and who they're in it for. They're in it to defend billionaires. They're in it for the CEOs. They're in it for the big bosses. That's who they're in it for. We're in it for the workers. We're in it for everyday people. We're in it for you. So if you want someone that's going to fight for you and your family, that's us. That's New Democrats. If you want someone that's going to defend the profits of billionaires and CEOs, well, that's Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney. We're going to constantly and every single day of this campaign let Canadians know who we're in it for. We're in it for you. We're going to fight for you. We're going to put you first. We need a worker-centric economy. You need a pro-worker prime minister. That's New Democrats. That's me. Donc, on est dans un temps difficile, c'est clair. Mais je suis tellement reconnaissant et je veux remercier les métallos pour leur appui. J'accepte cet appui. Je veux remercier Marty Warren, Kevon, merci infiniment pour votre appui. On sait que dans ces temps difficiles, c'est important de parler de qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire. Avec les menaces de Donald Trump, on sait qu'on a des travailleurs qui ont peur qu'ils vont perdre leurs emplois. On a déjà vu les travailleurs qui ont perdu leurs emplois. Et qu'est-ce que Mark Carney a fait pendant ce temps où les travailleurs perdent leurs emplois à cause de cette guerre commerciale? Mark Carney était premier ministre pour une semaine et il n'a rien fait pour aider ses travailleurs. Mais elle a trouvé le temps de voyager en Europe, elle a trouvé le temps de couper les impôts pour les millionnaires, mais il n'a rien fait pour aider les travailleurs.
Small technical problem. We're fixing it right now. Petit problème technique, on est en train de réparer ça. On va être de retour dans pas long.
Garder leur maison, payer leur loyer, payer leurs factures, faire l'épicerie. On a besoin de créer plus d'emplois au Canada avec un plan construit au Canada avec les contenus canadiens. On a besoin de diversifier notre relation commerciale et on a besoin de protéger nos industries parce qu'il y a une menace des autres entreprises étrangères qui veulent acheter nos industries au Canada. Mais finalement, dans cette élection, vous avez un choix. Un choix entre les autres partis, les conservateurs, Pierre Poilievre, les libéraux, Mark Carney, qui essaient de défendre les profits des grandes entreprises, des PDG, ou l'NPD qui va défendre vos intérêts, les intérêts de monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Je pense que le choix est clair. Encore, je suis tellement reconnaissant d'appui de Métallo. Merci infiniment pour cet appui. J'accepte cet appui avec grand honneur et je m'engage à continuer de défendre les intérêts des travailleurs de monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Merci.
We'll start with questions on site. It'll be one question, one follow-up.
All right, so we're hearing the election calls coming on Sunday. What are your thoughts on the timing of this all?
Well, this is a decision of the Liberals. I've said very clearly that we are up against one of the most serious threats that we've seen in a generation when it comes to the economy. And I propose that we should put in place protections for workers first. We should guarantee that every worker in our country will have the ability to access a support that will keep a roof over their head, food on the table, and they can continue to pay their bills. I want to see that done first. I want to see a plan that creates jobs in Canada using Canadian content. I want to see that economic plan put in first, and then we go to an election. But it's clear that Mark Carney wants to go first in an election, and so that's what's going to happen. But we're ready for an election. And in this election, the choice is clear. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre have already shown you they're in it for the billionaires. They're in it for rich CEOs. They're in it for those at the top. We're in it for you. We're in it for workers. And that's why we're so honored to receive the endorsement of United Steelworkers with great honor.
So this area has typically been an NDP stronghold. How do you plan on maintaining that and then growing more support in this area?
We want workers to know when you're up against a question in this trade war, where you've got Donald Trump threatening workers, threatening our very existence, our very country. Who's going to fight for you and your family, and not the billionaires, not the CEOs? That's really a question I want folks to ask themselves. And we're going to show that here on the mountain with Monique Taylor, you know, that's someone that's going to fight for you and your family. That's not someone that's going to suck up to a CEO or try to please a billionaire. That's not what you get with Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. It's pretty clear they've shown you their priorities. Mark Carney, in his week as Prime Minister, did trips to Europe and cut taxes for millionaires. That was his priority. He did not put in place anything for workers. Pierre Poilievre literally showed up to a factory not far from here in Burlington where workers actually lost their jobs. And his proposal was a tax cut for big businesses. That was literally his proposal, standing in front of workers who lost their jobs. That shows you who he's in it for. Who we're in it for is you. One of the first things we're going to do as government is make sure that EI is there for you. If you ever lose your job, there's going to be something in place that's going to keep a roof over your head, that's going to keep food on the table, that's going to make sure you can pay your bills. That's the difference. We're worried about workers. They're worried about billionaires.
All right, how do you envision fighting back against Trump? Because it seems like every day he comes up with a new twist, a new whopper.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we know what he's going to do next. I don't think anyone knows what he's going to do next. I don't think he knows what he's going to do next. He wants to create chaos, and he really wants to hurt people. I called him an arsonist because he's setting fire not just to our economy, he's setting fire to his own economy. He's hurting workers and people in the United States. So we got to fight back against that, and there's lots of ways to fight back. But what I'm particularly concerned about is who we're fighting for. We've seen really the type of fight that's in front of us has to be one where we put workers first. But we've already seen where Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney want to go. They're already talking about big tax cuts for millionaires, tax cuts for big corporations. None of that's going to guarantee that working people actually get their fair share. That's the difference. So in the fight with Donald Trump, I want you to ask yourselves, who do you think is going to actually put your family first? Who's going to put working people first? It's not going to be Pierre Poilievre. It's certainly not going to be Mark Carney. It's going to be us.
We will now take questions via Zoom.
Back to you. Yep.
So we will go ahead and start with David Baxter with CP. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Singh. You can hear me all right?
Just try that one more time. I think we lost the audio, but it'll sure come back right now.
Oh, mic check 1 2 1 2. Hear me all right now?
I do, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, talking about Mark Carney and tax cuts. One thing he's talked about wanting to get rid of the capital gains tax. We haven't seen how they do that yet. But one thing he has talked about that they have done is bring in the Order in Council to get rid of the consumer carbon price. What would an NDP government do on that front?
Well, I mean, that decision's already been made. And we said for a long time that in the fight against the climate crisis, what we're worried about is the two approaches of the Liberals and the Conservatives. The Liberals let big polluters off the hook. They didn't really go after them the right way and put a lot of burden on working people. We raised that as a concern. And then with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, they want to see no limit to how much big polluters can pollute. That's clearly a bad plan as well. We don't want big polluters to poison our air, our water, our land. So we need a plan that goes after big polluters, that supports workers, and that actually reduces our emissions. That's what we're going to put forward in the campaign. And I look forward to sharing the details of our plan. But you're going to see those elements. We're going to support working people. We're going to make the big polluters pay, and we're going to reduce our emissions.
And of course, we've seen a more and more polarized electorate, threats to candidates, constituency offices, things like that over the last couple of years, including protesters getting in your own face not that long ago. What is the NDP doing for candidate security and volunteer security in and around the election?
It's a good question. I know one of the things I'm really worried about with some of the increasing tension in politics is there's some really amazing candidates who may not put their name forward. And that to me is a big worry. I want people to want to put their name forward because we're better off when more people come forward and put their names forward as candidates. We want more people to participate. We don't want people to feel discouraged. So this is a part of the reason why we got to focus in our critiques on the policies. You're going to hear me point out the problems with the policies of Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. The fact that they're putting billionaires first and not putting workers first. The fact that they're neglecting actually workers and what they're going through. The workers behind me, they need someone that's going to say, hey, every single day when I wake up, what am I going to do to make working people's lives better? That's what a leader should do. That's what a politician should do. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So when I critique a leader, I'm going to focus on their policies or their bad decisions. And I think it's important for us to make it about the decisions, about what they're doing, and not make it personal. And so, I mean, I encourage folks to keep that as the way we move forward in this campaign. Let's make it about the decisions. Let's make it about people's policies, and let's not make it personal. I said recently, taking shots at someone's kid, it's offline. Whoever that is, whatever party they are, you don't go after a politician's kids. And so we got to make sure we're drawing these lines. Make it about the policies, make it about each candidate. That's fine. But let's not make it personal. Let's not attack people's families.
Nous allons maintenant à Juliane Lapointe avec Radio-Canada. C'est à vous.
Bonjour, M. Singh.
Bonjour.
J'aimerais vous entendre sur les élections. Vous êtes passé de 19 à 11% dans les intentions de vote en quelques mois. Est-ce que vous sentez que c'est plus difficile dans ce contexte-là de recruter des candidats pour l'élection?
On a plus de candidats à recruter que le gouvernement, que les libéraux. Donc, on est fiers du fait qu'on a des candidats et candidates extraordinaires qui se présentent pour notre parti. J'ai des candidats et candidates derrière moi maintenant. Et je suis tellement fier et reconnaissant de qualité des candidats qui se présentent pour le parti NPD. Et dans cette élection, vous avez un choix important. C'est une élection tellement importante. Et la question, c'est qui va se battre pour vous et votre famille? Et qui va se battre pour défendre les intérêts des riches PDG? Mark Carney et Pierre Poilievre ils ont déjà montré que leur priorité, c'est les ultra riches. Ma priorité, c'est vous et votre famille.
Puis j'aimerais vous entendre sur le fait que le gouvernement Carney, qui est sur le point de conclure un partenariat avec l'Europe pour l'approvisionnement militaire, il voudrait que des avions de chasse Gripen de l'entreprise Saab soient fabriqués au Québec. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec cette approche-là?
Merci pour la question. Je pense que avec l'investissement dans nos forces canadiennes, on doit avoir des investissements. Et le problème depuis longtemps, c'était le système d'approvisionnement au niveau fédéral, particulièrement concernant l'équipement pour nos forces canadiennes. On a eu des problèmes historiques et des grands problèmes. Récemment, j'ai dit que un gouvernement néo-démocrate, on va annuler le contrat pour les F-35 et on favorise un programme comme un contrat comme celle de Saab parce que ils ont proposé de construire une usine au Canada où ils vont fabriquer les avions au Canada et on peut aussi les maintenir au Canada. Ça, c'est la meilleure façon de garder notre souveraineté et notre sécurité nationale. Donc, je favorise ce sort de programme. Le fait que ça soit au Québec, c'est excellent. On a besoin d'avoir des capacités de produire les choses dont on a besoin au Canada, dans notre pays. Et si on dépense d'argent, on doit avoir dans chaque contrat où on dépense un grand montant d'argent, on doit avoir des garanties que ça crée des emplois au Canada. Et ça, c'est pourquoi je favorise des programmes ou des contrats comme celle de Saab.
Next, we'll go to Marina with the CBC. Please go ahead.
Hi there, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions. The NDP
course.
hasn't polled this low in decades. Some projections show that the NDP is at risk of losing up to 3/4 of the seats you have right now. Your own seat is at risk. After all this time as the leader, what do you think it is that you haven't been able to do to turn things around for the party?
This is a very important election. And I know that Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre would want nothing better than the NDP to disappear so they can continue to give big gifts to the billionaires, to favor rich CEOs, and not have us point out that actually we need an economy that works for working people. I'm sure they would love for us to not point out that they've completely ignored working people. I think Mark Carney would love for me to not be there to point out that a week of him being in prime minister, he's found time to do a whole bunch of other things, but nothing for workers at a time when they're actually worried about losing their jobs and they're already losing their jobs. Nothing to improve EI, nothing to say, hey, if you lose your job in this country, we're going to guarantee that you can keep your roof over your head. You're going to keep food on the table. Nothing. And Pierre Poilievre would like nothing more than New Democrats not to be there to point out, you show up to a factory where workers lost their jobs and you're not going to mention anything for those workers that lost their job. You're going to propose another big tax cut for big corporations. I mean, I'm sure they would like nothing better than that. News for them, news for everybody. We're not going anywhere. We're always going to fight for working people. We're not going anywhere.
If you don't improve the NDP's standing in this next election, should you step down as leader?
Right now, we're focused on the election in front of us and the important choice that people have. You want to choose Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, who've already shown you they're in it for the billionaires, or do you want to choose New Democrats who are going to continue to fight for you and your family? That's a choice in this election.
We will now go to global news. If you can identify yourself, please.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions. This is Jillian
course.
Piper with News. You can hear me okay?
Yep. Can you hear a little bit of feedback noise there, but I think I can get you.
Oh, apologies. Okay. So I just wanted to ask, we've seen a trend in recent polling that progressive voters are moving to the Liberal Party. What is your message to Canadians who think they're voting strategically with the Liberal government to avoid a Poilievre government?
Well, for voters out there, I want you to ask this question of yourself. that in this time, when we've got serious threats from Donald Trump, we got threats to workers, we got threats to our country, who do you think is going to fight for you and your family? Literally, who's going to fight for working people? Because I can tell you, Mark Carney has already shown you who his priority is. He's already proposed tax cuts for millionaires instead of actually anything for working people. Pierre Poilievre's the same thing. He's shown you who he is. He showed up to a factory where workers lost their jobs and didn't offer anything to those workers. We're different. Our priority is you. So in this time, I ask you to ask yourself, who do you want in Ottawa fighting for you? Who do you want in Ottawa who's going to put you and your family first? Who do you think is actually going to prioritize working people over the CEOs? Who's going to prioritize working families over billionaires? That answer is very simple. That's New Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. And just as a follow-up here, I wanted to ask that Mr. Poilievre has decided that reporters will not be traveling with him on his federal election campaign. What do you make of that decision?
Well, it's no surprise to me that Pierre Poilievre is afraid of some questions. You can see the way he acts when he gets asked a question. He gets defensive, he gets offended, he can't handle questions. Is that something that you want as a prime minister who's afraid of questions, who can't take the heat? I mean, you need someone who's going to be able to take tough questions, who's not afraid of any questions. We welcome the journalists. They're going to be on our bus. They're going to be on our plane. We're not afraid of tough questions. We believe that this job is one that requires you to be able to stand up and say, yeah, this is what I believe in, and be able to have your convictions challenged. I'm not afraid of that. Pierre Poilievre has shown you again and again, he is afraid of those type of questions. I'm sorry to say, I think Mark Carney is showing you that as well. He's showing you that he doesn't like tough questions either. I mean, the fact that he's unwilling to answer questions, very legitimate questions about his conflict of interest. He's going to be the person that is running as one of the candidates for prime minister. Every other candidate for prime minister has to disclose very clearly their assets. It is an understandable thing for Canadians to be able to make a decision about who they want to govern the country, to know, do they have any conflict of interest? What are they? The fact that he's unwilling to do that shows you, again, a fear of accountability. And I want Canadians to pay attention to that. We're not afraid of accountability. Bring on the questions. We invite journalists onto our plane, onto our bus, and we'll look forward to meeting you on the campaign trail.
I have a request for the same answer in French, please.
Okay, happy to do that, actually. Je ne suis pas surpris parce que Pierre Poilievre a déjà montré qu'il a peur des questions. Donc, il n'invite pas les journalistes sur son avion, sur son autobus, parce qu'il a peur des questions. On a vu ça. Et est-ce que c'est quelqu'un qu'on pense qui a la force d'être une chef de notre pays, qui peut gérer les dossiers tellement importants et difficiles? Quelqu'un qui a peur des questions, qui a peur des journalistes? Je pense que non. Ce n'est pas quelqu'un qui a la qualité de devenir Premier ministre si elle a peur des questions. Moi, je n'ai aucune peur des questions. Les journalistes sont invités sur notre avion, sur notre autobus. Les questions sont bienvenues. Je suis prêt à répondre aux questions difficiles parce que ça, c'est mon travail. J'ai des convictions. Je n'ai aucune peur de répondre aux questions parce que j'ai confiance dans mes convictions. Mais ça montre que peut-être Pierre Poilievre n'a pas les mêmes convictions, même pas, il n'a pas les mêmes forces. Mais je suis aussi, malheureusement, je peux aussi dire que je pense que c'est la même chose pour Mark Carney aussi. Il a déjà montré qu'il ne peut pas répondre aux questions difficiles. Il répond dans une manière qui n'est pas ce qu'on pense qu'un premier ministre doit avoir quand il répond aux questions difficiles. Et honnêtement, c'est des questions tellement normales. Les gens veulent savoir, est-ce qu'il y a un conflit d'intérêt pour la personne qui est candidat pour devenir Premier ministre dans la prochaine élection? Les gens méritent de savoir est-ce qu'il y a des conflits. Donc, les jeunes sont bienvenus avec moi. Les questions difficiles sont bienvenues. Et je vais vous voir sur la campagne électorale.
This is all the time we have for now. So this concludes our press conference. Ceci est le temps que nous avons pour aujourd'hui. Ceci conclut notre conférence de presse. Merci.
Thanks so much. Merci. Thank you all.